What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the overall market and why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have the FOMC meeting. I'm going to break down how on earth the events coming out for tomorrow are likely going to play out, how this may affect the markets, and also some very important levels to watch for on Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. But before breaking things down about all this information, before I talk about what's going on with tomorrow, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just about 8 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So looking at SPY, this thing was down 0.21% for the day. Overall, it dropped a little bit, but then ended up getting a nice bounce and still got projected off this 50 EMA. Overall, it was just a little bit in the red by the time it closed after trying to make this recovery move, and still is looking quite weak overall based off this trend. But the question is, how will the market move as we have FOMC? What do I think is likely going to happen? And everyone has to remember that it's not just FOMC. We have a couple of events coming out, and they're going to happen in this order. So first off, tomorrow, the market is going to open like normal at the normal time. And then at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time or New York time, we have the interest rate hike decision coming out first. Okay? The decision comes out and the market's going to have a big reaction to it. And whatever the Fed does, now the odds do favor a pause, but whatever they do will cause high volatility. Now, that's going to come at the very beginning. And then this is just going to make the headlines and things like that. It's just going to be announced. Then at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, we have the press conference. That's a separate event. Jerome Powell is going to be speaking during the press conference and talk about the Fed's future policies and hint at what the Fed is going to be doing. This is going to be very important, so I'm going to talk about how all of this may affect the markets in just a couple of minutes. But just as a reminder, we started to see some upticks in inflation for all items, some upticks which were led by energy, as we're starting to see oil prices going up like crazy, like wildfire. And that's very important because it's leading to inflation just continuing to increase in some sectors. Now, it isn't that crazy overall because core is still in a downtrend, which is still a decent sign for the Fed, which is why the Fed is likely going to prioritize that and be incentivized to try to pause or at least skip on this rate hike depending on what they do. But because there are some increases, at least signs of inflationary pressures going up in some sectors, this could incentivize the Fed to give us future rate hikes, which is still a possibility, and we have to be open-minded to that. Now, for now, I just want to remind you all the market did drop just a little bit as the market's a little bit uncertain about what the Fed is going to do. But according to our Fed Watch tool, there's a 99% chance the Fed is going to either pause or skip during this meeting for tomorrow. That is some very important news. However, it's not the end of the world, or it's not like it doesn't really put us in the clear is what I'm trying to say, because the Fed may end up raising rates again, giving us one more rate hike in either November or December during one of the last FOMC meetings of the year. There is still a possibility of that, and if they end up hinting to doing that, that could cause the market to slow down. So it's going to depend heavily on what Jerome Powell says, but one thing that's worth noting is that this has almost never been incorrect, looking at the target rate probabilities when it's extremely hot like this in one direction. So I think it's extremely likely the Fed is going to either pause or skip, or at least just not give us any new rate hike for tomorrow. But there could be future ones coming out, and that's when Jerome Powell is going to be speaking. So once again, don't forget, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time is when we have the rate hike decision. 2:30 is when we have Jerome Powell speaking during the press conference tomorrow. That's going to be the major market moving event. And we know when Powell speaks, the market likes to go absolutely crazy. All right, so what does this mean for SPY? What do I think SPY is likely going to do? Well, here's my answer. When we look at the market historically, when we approach the FOMC meeting, the market tends to be very slow, very sideways. I think that's what the market's going to do tomorrow. I think we may try to push up just a little bit, but the market's just going to be range bound, just go back and forth around this 442 zone between 442 and 444. Going back and forth is going to be very boring for the first couple of hours. I think that's most likely what's going to happen. That's what happens historically. And then don't forget, at 2 o'clock p.m., we have the rate hike decision coming out. When the decision comes out, I think the Fed is most likely going to announce they're not raising rates. They're going to be skipping or pausing this time around. Okay, so the initial reaction from the market may be bullish. We may get a little pop in the markets. We may see SPY fly for 445 or so around 2 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. Okay, and then after that happens, I would say the market may kind of like slow down a little bit, may cool off just a bit, right before Jerome Powell is going to speak. And the moment he opens his mouth, the market tends to like sell off dramatically before coming back up. So then Powell's going to start speaking, right? As time goes on, give it a few minutes, we'll see what he says. Whatever he says is going to cause a big move in the markets. Now, it is technically possible for Jerome Powell to ultimately pump the markets, right? We have a potential bottoming candle on the daily. There's a chance that he could pump the market and SPY can make its way back up and get a green close tomorrow. There's a possibility Powell pumps us. I'm not going to rule that out. But it's also possible that Powell talks about how inflation is going up, the unemployment data is not what the Fed wants it to be like. There's some signs of contraction. The Fed has to be aggressive, and they may have to raise rates again. I think that he's not going to confirm that they're going to raise rates again, but he's likely going to tell us that they're going to look at the data. But he may say something about inflation, and he may say something that spooks the market. So I'm kind of in the middle with what he ends up saying. Looking at the daily, we just hit the 50 EMA and kind of bounced and came back above it. So this is acting as support right now. We're going to be watching this carefully. But I'm trying to tell you, I don't know what Powell's going to say. I really don't know. If Powell ends up pumping the market, ultimately, we could see SPY push for 444 plus, 445, and just start pushing. If Powell gives us the rug pull, depending on what he says, we could see SPY break below 442 and hold below it. If we close below 442, there's a risk of us coming back down to 440. If that fails, we're going to come all the way down to 436 as the next major critical support. There's not a whole lot of support below 440, so we have to be very careful. We also have this gap down here on the daily, so there is a risk of more potential downside. So I'm going to be open-minded about Powell. I think I know what's likely going to happen as we approach Powell. I just explained that, but with Powell, I don't know what's going to happen from there on out. So watch for some sideways price action in the morning. Watch for a pop when the rate hike decision comes out. I think that's very probable. Watch the market cool off a little bit after that. Then when Powell starts speaking, typically the market drops hard and comes back up. It's crazy volatility we see. And then give it some time when Powell speaks. Give it some time, and we'll see which way the market goes. I really don't know what he's going to say specifically. I can't promise anything about how the market's going to react, but expect some crazy volatility. That's going to affect the entire market. For Tesla, I predicted we'd see a green day today, and that is what happened, but it wasn't as strong as I thought it would be. I thought we could see this thing get closer to 270. We actually ended up peaking around 267, so very close, but not exact. However, there is a possible inverse head and shoulders developing, but no guarantees about any formations, any patterns. SPY had the same thing developing, but it ended up failing. So no promises. I can't promise anything. Tesla could always come back down. It depends on so many different factors. But here's how tomorrow may end up going for Tesla. Because it's FOMC, I can't really predict it too accurately, but I can tell you that it's very probable based off the past would be Tesla just trading sideways in the morning, going back and forth and back and forth. Could retest its 50 EMA and come a little bit lower. So I'm going to be expecting to retest 264 and just trade sideways to start us off. Watch for a pop to 268. Once the rate hike decision comes out, it could go maybe a little lower, so somewhere around there. It could pop even higher, who knows. Then it's going to come down and then react to Jerome Powell. If Powell pumps Tesla, it could push into the 270s. If Powell causes the rug pull, we're going to see Tesla come all the way back down, potentially 260, maybe even 257, depending on how aggressive he is. So Jerome Powell is going to take control after that. I can't truly predict what's going to happen at the end of the day. But that's what I would say for Tesla is the most probable outcome. The IWM is a little bit weak, not looking that strong just yet, but it's trying to base around this 181 zone. Now, one thing worth noting is that the Russell has this head and shoulders pattern, so there is a risk of downside. We're very close to our support. I think we just hit the support right about here. So we're at support right now on the IWM. For tomorrow, watch it trade sideways around this 181 range. Watch for a pop when the rate hike decision comes out to 183. Then after that, it's all on Powell. If Powell pumps it could go to 184 plus. If he gives us the rug pull, it's going to fall into the high 170s. It all depends on Jerome Powell. For Aapl, for tomorrow, it looks a little bit more bullish. I was talking about Aapl getting very close to 180. We came so close today. We hit 179.62. I've been calling 180 on Aapl since yesterday, and we came pretty close to that zone. Now, with Aapl pumping after all the bullish news that came out, I just want to note that 180 is going to be some key resistance, and we don't know if Aapl is going to break that or not. And I think that Aapl is just going to stall and trade sideways tomorrow morning, get a pop probably to 180 or so after the rate hike decision comes out, reject, and then react to Jerome Powell. If Powell pumps us, we could break the 181s. If Powell causes the rug pull, it's going to come all the way down below 177.5, and that's going to sink the markets. So just be prepared for that just to be safe. Watch for some sideways price action in the QQQ around this 368 to 370 zone. Look for a pop to about 372-ish once when the decision comes out. Then when Powell gives his speech, we'll see what happens after that. So watch for sideways price action, a little pop. Then Powell speaks, and who knows what's going to happen. I said 372 because that's historical resistance from yesterday, and also because of our 200 EMA that's right there. And then it all depends on Powell. I don't know what he's going to cause. If he causes a rug pull, we could come back down below 366. This is a support right here, which can cause us to test 365. If Powell pumps us, we could push for 374. It all depends on Jerome Powell. For Nvidia is looking kind of flat right now. It looks like it was trying to base right here. So it's not looking as bad. We also established a higher low, but it looks like it's very stationary for now. I think it may remain in this range for tomorrow. Tomorrow, watch for this thing just trade sideways around this, I would say between 430 and 440, going back and forth and back and forth. Very boring. And then Nvidia is going to likely get a pop when the decision comes out. We could see 446.5 being tested, a rejection off that. Then Jerome Powell's going to be giving his speech. He could pump us towards 450, or he could cause the rug pull all the way back down to 420. It all depends on him, guys. I really can't predict that. It depends on what he says and what he ends up anticipating, so it's going to be very important. And we have to be ready for that. For Microsoft, I mean, this is looking very flat as well. I think it's just going to trade sideways into the 328s. Then with the one little pop to 330 is possible after the decision, and then with Powell's speech, 331 plus could come, or we could see a rug pull all the way back down to 325 or below that. For AMD, we're going to be watching some potential sideways price action. Same thing as well with Nvidia. It's going to likely be range bound between 100 and about 103, going back and forth and back and forth. There could be one pop to 104 when the rate hike decision comes, a drop back down to the range, and then it all depends on Powell. A nice pump from Powell could push us to 105 plus. If Powell gives us the rug pull, we're going to sink below 99. It all depends on Powell. I can't really predict that exactly. For the VIX, I mean, this thing is potentially forming this head and shoulder structure, but the thing is it's at support right now, so the VIX could go either way. Technically, it all depends on different factors. I'm in the middle. The VIX is not that telling. The dollar index is kind of flat as well. We're going to be watching it as it's at resistance right now, but one thing that's concerning though is there's a possible inverse head and shoulders on the dollar that's forming. So the dollar looks to me like it might end up coming down a bit towards the 200 EMA, and then that's going to test like 105 flat. So maybe the market gets a pop and the dollar drops a little bit tomorrow, but then the dollar is looking like it's forming an inverse head and shoulders. So the dollar may come down a little bit initially, trade sideways for a bit, then start pushing up later on, which could be bearish for the stock market. There is most definitely a risk of this, so please be very careful, which means the market could see some downside based off what the dollar is doing over the next couple of trading days. There could be some downside coming to the stock market. Maybe Jerome Powell does cause a rug pull, who knows? The dollar is once again looking a little bit more in favor of the bears for like for the next couple of days. There's a risk of that just looking at this inverse head and shoulders that is formed. As of right now, that's what it's looking like. We'll see if this holds or not. For Coinbase, watch for it to pop a little bit. So it's looking a little weak right now, but it may pop a little bit towards 79, trade sideways around there. Get a little pop to 80, come back down, and then with Powell pumping it, it could go all the way back up above 82. With the rug pull, it's going to sink below 76. It all depends on Jerome Powell. Google's going to trade sideways around this range right here between 137 to 139, going back and forth and back and forth. We could get a pop towards 139.9 thanks to the rate hike decision, come back down, and then it all depends on Powell. If he pumps us more, we can hit the 140s. If he gives us the rug pull, we're going to come all the way back down to 136. For Amazon, it's the same thing. This thing may trade sideways for a bit. It's looking a little weaker, but I'm expecting some sideways price action in the 137s. Then it all depends on the last pop and then Jerome Powell, and that's pretty much it. Meta, I was expecting some kind of bounce because we had a very bullish looking wedge developing. We got the bounce on Meta. This could look bullish, but I don't want to turn too bullish just yet with the inverse head and shoulders and the cup and the handle forming. I would say it depends on what happens with FOMC. This looks like we may get a pop thanks to FOMC, so this is very conflicting. So watch for this to trade sideways around the 305s. Watch for a little pop to 307. Then after that, if Powell gives us the pump, we're going to see 310 plus. If we get the rug pull, it's going to come back down below 297. Okay, so it all depends on Powell. I can't really predict what Powell's going to say, so I'm going to be open-minded. But please remember, the market may trade sideways and be a little weak to start us off. Look for a pop when the rate hike decision likely comes, and then a drop after that, and then we'll see what happens with Powell when he gives his speech. That's what I have for this one. Get ready for tomorrow. It could be absolutely wild when Powell starts giving his speech. It's going to be crazy, so be ready. He's going to be speaking around 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Do what you have to do, guys. Get ready for tomorrow, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and peace out.